Here's a solution to Rockswold problem 6.3.37. The problem is to factor this trinomial, 16b squared plus 8b minus 35. Always when you're factoring, the first thing to do is look for a common factor. These three terms clearly don't have a factor of b in common, so now let's look at the coefficients. The first two coefficients are just powers of 2, so they only have factors of 2. And the third coefficient, 35, it has a factor of 5 and a factor of 7, no factors of 2. So there are no common factors in this trinomial. Since this is a quadratic polynomial, since it's degree 2, we can think about factoring this using the MN trick, or AC method, it sometimes gets called, or we can use the guess and check method. I'm going to use guess and check because it works a little better for me usually. Looking at 16, the ways that 16 factors are 1 and 16, 2 and 8, or 4 and 4. And then looking at 35, it's 1 and 35, or 5 and 7. Also, for the 35, we're going to need a minus sign on one of these two, but we aren't sure which yet. Looking at these possibilities, because this middle coefficient is 8, that's not that big, and so I think the 1 in the 16 and the 1 in 35 probably aren't going to be what I need, so probably we're looking for factors that are smaller. So let's get set up to factor this. It's going to look something like this. And just because the 8 is so small relative to 16 and 35, I'm guessing that for my b's, I'm going to have a coefficient of 4. And that's just a guess at this point. So I'm guessing it's going to be 4b and 4b. Okay? Now, because there's a minus sign right here on our constant term, we know that the signs in the middle are going to have to be a plus and a minus, so that when you multiply the constant term on the left with the constant term on the right, you get a negative number. So now I have to guess, should I guess 1 and 35 or 5 and 7? Probably 5 and 7, again, because the middle coefficient, the 8, is so small. But which should be with the minus sign, the 5 or the 7? Well, if you look at the sign on the middle coefficient, it's positive, so the positive one is going to have to be bigger. So the 7 should go with the plus, so that the bigger one is positive. So let's guess that the 7 should go here and the 5 should go here. All right. Now this is a guess. I do not know yet if this is how the original polynomial factors. The only way to know if this is right is to actually multiply it back out and see if I get the polynomial that I started with. So let's multiply this out. So 4b times 4b is 16b squared. 4b times 5 is minus 20b. 7 times 4b is plus 28b. Things are looking good. And 7 times 5 is negative 35. All right. Now we need to simplify this. Those two terms in the middle, you can combine them as usual. 16b squared plus 8b minus 35. And of course, this is the same as what we started with. So our first guess, I got pretty lucky here, our first guess on how to factor is actually the right way to do it. So there's our final answer. 4b plus 7 times 4b minus 5. As usual, if you're doing this problem online, your numbers will be different, but the ideas will be the same.